Hello, my name is Anne-Marie Cannon, and I'm the host of Armchair Historians. What's your favorite history? Each episode begins with this one question. Our guests come from all walks of life. YouTube celebrities, comedians, historians, even neighbors from the small mountain community that I live in. They're people who love history and get really excited about a particular time, place, or person from our distant or not so distant past. The jumping off point is the place where they became curious, then entered the rabbit hole into discovery. Fueled by an unrelenting need to know more, we look at history through the filter of other people's eyes. Armchair Historians is a Belgian Rabbit production. Stay up to date with us through Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram. Wherever you listen to your podcast, that is where you'll find us. Armchair Historians is an independent, commercial-free podcast. If you'd like to support the show and keep it ad-free, you can buy us a cup of coffee through Ko-fi, or you can become a patron through Patreon. Links to both in the episode notes. Hello, fellow Armchair Historians. In this episode, I talked to Amanda Woods, co-host of Encounters, a Paranormal Experience. You guessed it, a podcast about the paranormal. Amanda chose to talk about a haunting in the United States that began a movie franchise, but more than that, it is the haunting that helped to launch the paranormal into the mainstream. Whether you believe in ghosts or not, this episode has some fun facts and campfire-worthy stories that may stray off course, but will ultimately lead back to the spooky factor. Amanda Wood, welcome, and thank you for being here today.
Hi, thank you for having me. I'm so excited to be here.
I'm so excited because this is for our Halloween season episodes, and I love being spooked, and I do ghost tours, and I have had some paranormal experiences, so I feel like this is it's my favorite holiday. Halloween is my favorite holiday, so.
Yes, too? Me too. Yes, I love Halloween. I actually have Halloween decorations just like incorporated into my just.
Oh, you don't even take them down.
I don't. No, I don't.
Oh, that's funny. That is too Halloween. Funny. So we're just going to get right off to the races, and I'm going to ask you, what is your favorite history that we're going to talk about today?
Okay, so for me, when it comes to my favorite history, it's definitely in the paranormal realm, and the paranormal history itself is so in-depth and crazy. But to me, the one that sticks out the most would be Amityville.
Oh.
Yes.
Oh.
I was a little nervous, I won't lie, because I had two in mind. It was Amityville or the Myrtle's Plantation.
Oh, I don't know anything about that.
Oh, see, that one's from Louisiana, a ghost. There's a lot of activity there. But when I think of what set paranormal history and what made a stamp in paranormal history, it always comes back to Amityville for me.
Okay.
The fact there's so many questions that you can really go into with Amityville. Mm-hmm. You don't really know. At the time, so much paranormal things happen, and then it kind of moves on. Amityville always sticks out. Do you want me to go into a little bit of the history about Amityville?
Yeah, definitely, because there might be listeners that don't know anything about it. So.
Okay, yeah. So the Amityville horror, as a lot of people know it, is in a town in Long Island, New York. So unfortunately, with most paranormal stories, it starts with a tragic murder of a family. It's the DeFeo family. And on November 13th, 1974, their oldest son, Ronald, took a rifle and killed everyone in his family. So that would be 6 people, both of his parents and his 4 siblings. Mm-hmm. And there was even weird things with the murder, because when it happened, none of the neighbors heard any gunshots. Mm-hmm. And it seems like no one in the family heard anything either, because everyone was found laying the same way in bed. They were all laying on their stomachs. And it was said that this all happened in about 15 minutes and nobody got up and moved or anything. It was very, very tragic. And Ronald himself was saying that he was hearing voices telling him to commit these crimes. After that, in December of 1975, George and Kathy Lutz move in with their 3 children. George is the stepfather to Kathy's 3 children. And they say from the moment that they moved into this place, weird things were happening.
Did they know about the murders?
I think so, because the DeFeo's furniture was still in the house.
Oh.
They didn't even move it. It was still in the same place. It was quite weird. That is another really creepy thing about this. And George is said to have dabbled in the occult. So the first thing they did do was have a priest come and bless the house. And when this was happening, the priest said he felt a slap across his face and a voice tell him to get out.
Ooh.
Yes, exactly. This all happened in the sewing room. And they said that when they moved in, they could never get the house warm. They had odd smells. There was cabinets being slammed closed. There was doors being ripped off the hinges. And there was also supposedly a green ooze dripping from the ceiling. There was things with flies. It was just weird from the get-go. George also said he experienced his wife transforming into an old woman and even levitating off of their bed. And he said one night he could hear the children's beds slamming up and down on the ceiling, but he was paralyzed and couldn't move. And they only stayed there for about 28 days, and then the family completely left. Yes, left all their stuff there and moved out. And and then the story continues, because 2 months later, a news crew had a bunch of ghost hunters come in. And this is when the Warrens are introduced into this story.
Okay, and just FYI, I lived the next town over from them in Connecticut.
Oh, yeah, do you?
I did.
Oh, okay.
I'm in Colorado now, but I did, and I remember people saying, "Oh my God, the Warrens are talking," and I'm like, "Who are the Warrens?"
Okay.
And then the person who would tell me the story about it would be like, they'd look spooked, and they'd tell me, I always remember about the Ouija board, and you should never do a Ouija board, and you're inviting demonic spirits into your world and all this stuff. So
exactly.
Yeah. Ooh.
And I will say this, I have a strong opinion about the Warrens, but I think they did a lot for the paranormal community. So I have a lot of respect for them in the same breath. Okay. But they are creepy, and they are involved in this story. They are the ones who are credited with taking the photo of this ghost boy on the staircase. Have you seen this?
I have seen that, yeah.
Okay, yeah. So it's this boy. He has glowing eyes. I mean, it looks like he's like peering around the staircase.
Yeah.
And when they took the picture, supposedly nobody's there. It's really creepy. I mean, if you see it, it gives you the chills. And it supposedly looks a lot like one of the kids who were tragically killed in that house. So it definitely gives it more credit. And then after that, that's when things really take off. You get book deal, you get a movie. It just goes from there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I remember, I think they were on the Phil Donahue show. Mm-hmm. The couple, the Lutzes. Mm-hmm. Yeah. I remember when all that happened.
Yeah, I mean, it was really, really popular. It really took over the news, everything. That's why it sticks out to me, too. One thing I also forgot to mention is George also said that he would wake up every night at 3:15. And that was supposedly when these murders happened.
Oh.
Yeah. And that number follows this story beyond even just the Lutzes. Okay. So that is also really like important to this story. Mm-hmm. Oh, wow. Yeah. Yeah. And so they started doing news interviews, being on TV shows, writing a book, and it becoming a bestseller. And then 2 years later in 1979, they made the first Amityville movie.
Why this history?
Because to me, it impacted the paranormal space. Before Amityville, you didn't really have stories taking on a life of its own like that, getting book deals, getting movies made out of them. But after that, now you're seeing that. Even the Warrens to this day, the Conjuring movies are $1 million franchises. They're making Annabelle 4, 5. They really introduced the paranormal world into the mainstream world, where you have ghost hunting shows. Travel Channel is now mostly ghost hunting shows, which I really like, because people are starting to rediscover that spiritual side.
Yeah.
And I like it better when it's done in a respectful manner. Some of these ghost hunting shows take it a little too far, in my opinion, because these are spirits. Like,
yeah.
So, and that's another reason kind of we do encounters, because we feel like all these things should be done as respectful as possible, but still entertaining, and it can be fun. There is something entertaining about telling these stories.
Yeah.
There's stories too, you know?
Well, I think it comes back to, and I say this pretty much every ghost tour I give, is that, you know, why are my ghost tours so popular? It's because it's the big question. It's the big unknown. We want to know when our loved ones pass on that they're not just gone. And we want to know that, you know, and even though we'll never know until it happens, maybe even not then, but you know, it's looking at it, talking about it. We all want to do it, whether we admit it or not.
Exactly.
So before I go to this next question, is there anything else about the history that you wanted to share with me?
Ronald changes his story a lot, by the way. At first, he kept talking about, that's why a lot of people question Amityville. It's because Ronald DeFeo first would say, oh, I hear voices. And then he said, no, my sister actually committed all these murders and killed herself. And then he said, no, she killed everyone and then I killed her. And then he said, no, actually someone else did it completely. He changed his story a lot. So then people really started questioning if the Lutzes were telling the truth or not. Because people started coming out saying, oh no, we came up with this story together. And when he started changing his story, it started discrediting it in a way.
Yeah.
But then you had the kids come out with a documentary talking about they did experience something, and that George Lutz may have been in more demonic practices than we really thought before. And it might be something a little more connected to...
So do you believe the haunting story?
I think it happened. I think parts of it happened, and I think parts of it might have been dramatized to, you know, make a good story. Yeah. But I don't know exactly what it was, who was doing what, but there's a lot of questions to it, and that's another thing that I find interesting when you start looking into these hauntings, especially popular hauntings.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I just wanted to mention that too, because I like to present both sides.
Well, I keep going back to my ghost tours. Yeah. I consider myself a storyteller. Yeah. A lot of the stories I tell on my tour are stories that have been told to me, or stories that I've read about that I might not really have an opinion about, or might not even believe, but I fashion the story and I tell it.
Yeah,
and
exactly.
I think that's part of storytelling, is that even if it is something that really happened, you know, it might go off the rails a bit and move into fiction or whatever, filling in the gaps with fiction. That doesn't mean that it didn't happen. So exactly. I do like to try to set my stories up in such a way that it's going to be shocking to the people I'm telling it to.
Yeah, exactly. I agree 100%.
It is shocking what happened with the DeFeo family. It's horrible.
Right.
My Amityville Horror is the name of the documentary that I interviewed the creator of that documentary. They do interview
the son.
The Warrens and the son, and not the Warrens. They interview the wife because the husband is dead.
Yeah.
Yeah, so, I mean, obviously, George is very disturbed.
Exactly. Me personally, I hadn't watched it yet, but Dakota did watch it. We talked about it in our episode. That was our third episode when we first started Encounters. Our third episode was Amityville.
Oh, I'll have to go back and listen.
He watched it, and that's why I believe things happened, because that man did come out and said, George had some stuff going on. He was doing some weird stuff in there. That's the thing that worries me a lot about when people take the paranormal stuff too far.
Yeah.
is because we also cover demonology on Encounters.
Okay.
I don't know what's out there, like you just mentioned. I'm not trying to mess with any of it.
Yeah.
I think it's cool to go to these places. You can go to Myrtle's and stay the night there, and you can maybe have a paranormal experience. And like you said, you do tours, you like take people probably to places, but you're like kind of like telling the story. When people go and are like hunting for ghosts,
Yeah.
so I really do respect it, and I really do like it. I just always want people to do it in a safe way, because we don't know what we're dealing with.
Yeah.
So I'm sorry, that's one of my little
No, yeah, I don't know. I don't get creeped out too much. A couple years back, I gave a tour to a mother and her teenage daughter who, the teenage daughter is sensitive, and she could see, what do you call that? Begins with an A.
apparition.
Yeah, she could see them. She could hear them. It was a common occurrence in her life, and it really disturbed her. And so her mother, being of the mind that she was, decided that, well, this is just part of who she is, and I have to help her to not be afraid of it. So one of the things she did is she took her on my ghost tour.
Yeah.
When we were talking, I think the teenager told me that. So there was something in her closet, and she kept experiencing it, and it was really upsetting her. It scared her, but she got to a point one day or one night where she got so scared. She was angry of being scared all the time.
Yeah.
And so she yelled, and she said, "What do you want from me?" And it stopped. And her takeaway from that is that they just want to be acknowledged.
Yeah.
So I don't know if that's true or not, but it sounded, like she was really convinced about that.
Right.
And so I think her mother was doing the right thing, trying to help her to come to terms with this sense, this extra sense.
Right.
That she had.
And I kind of had an experience like that when I was younger. I wouldn't say that I'm sensitive. I kind of had something like that too. And that's why I've always been so fascinated with the paranormal and with like what is going on.
I was going to ask you, so what do you think is going on? Do you have a theory about it, or are you just taking in information? And
yeah, there's a lot with multiverses, shadow people. That's why we cover so much. That's why we don't only just cover ghosts, we cover aliens and cryptids, because there's so much. There's parts of space we're never going to discover. There's parts of the ocean right here on Earth. We don't know what's going on down there. I lean towards multiverses.
Okay.
But I wouldn't stand solid on that either.
Okay.
I just know it's spiritual.
Yeah, it's energy, right?
Exactly.
And we don't really understand energy. That's what I always come back to, and I don't really know. I'm not a religious person. I don't know. I don't know. I don't know what the answer is, but
right.
There's a couple things that have happened since I've been doing ghost tours. One of them is, so my friend is a director of a museum. It's called Hotel de Paris Museum, and it's in Georgetown. And one of his docents was working one day by herself, and I think she considers herself to be a little bit sensitive. Mm-hmm. She was there by herself one day, and she felt there was a presence there, and she went upstairs, and she started recording with her phone, and you hear her say, she whispers, "Is there anybody here today?" Mm-hmm. And then what you hear next, and she didn't hear this with her ears, she saw it on the video that she took. You hear, and I have the recording, and I will send it to you so you can
please.
listen to it. I will. Because this is the one. This is the one that makes me scratch my head.
Yeah.
So she says that, and then you hear a voice, and it's another voice, and it's a man's voice, and he's mumbling. And then my friend Kevin, who is the executive director of the Hotel de Paris Museum, says, it's almost as if all of a sudden he realizes that somebody hears him. And then he says, I'm not sure the order he says it in, but two of the things that he says, one is, I work here. And he whispers it. I'm Joe. And so Kevin's like, after he, saw the video, he's like, there's no Joe that worked here. But then he started doing research and he found out that there was a Joe. And Joe was very connected to the owner of the hotel, the founder of the hotel.
Yeah.
And they had a mining company together.
Yeah.
They were both from France, I think. And then when Louis Dupuis dies, who is the owner of the hotel, he dies suddenly. This guy Joe takes over, and he's the cook. And then Sophie Galley, who inherits the hotel from Louis Dupuis, she's also from the old country, from France. She also dies suddenly.
Wow.
And when she gets sick, Joe is running the place. And in the end, Sophie Galley leaves him $500 at the turn of the century. So I don't know what that would be today, but it was a lot of money.
Right.
So I love when, first the digital proof, and then when the history lines up after the fact.
Exactly. It's amazing.
That's the thing about that really, because I'm a history geek, so.
Yeah, and I mean, so are we. We love it. Like, it's so amazing. And it's amazing how stories connect, too. Like, what I was saying earlier with, like, that the girl who you talked about on your ghost tour and her mom brought her.
Yeah.
When I was young, I used to experience something like shaking me awake every day.
Yeah.
And then one night I was like, okay, I'm going to see what it is. I turned, it looked like a shadow person, which if you don't know what a shadow person looks like, it's a shadow it normally looks like a man with a top hat. I was 5. I didn't know what a shadow person was.
Yeah.
I saw that thing. To this day, I'm 30 now. I remember it vividly.
Wow.
From that night on, never bothered me again.
Interesting.
I'm sorry, what were you going to say?
It's like he wanted to be seen.
Exactly. And that's what a lot of shadow people who talk about shadow people, talk about that. That's when you're in sleep paralysis, you wake up, you see that shadow person, they're watching you. They don't necessarily interact with you a lot, but sometimes they do, just kind of depending. And I work at a historic museum. It's called the Loretto Chapel in Santa Fe.
Oh, how fun. Okay.
Yeah. And it's a really cool place. Has a great history. It has a spiral staircase. No one knows who built it, how it was built. It has no nails, screws, center support. It's really, really cool. Yeah. And normally we don't really talk about ghosts there, and my boss might not love this, but there is this piece of evidence we all cannot deny. It happened at like 2:00 in the morning, and you see on our security camera, it looks like a drip. It almost looks like it's weird. This drip float down from the staircase really slowly, go over to the statue. We have a Sacred Heart statue. It stops there for a moment, go over to the Our Lady of Grace statue, and then fly up into the air.
So it's a drip? When you say drip, what do you mean? I'm not sure.
It looks like an orb. When it comes to orb kind of evidence, I'm not the biggest fan of it. I think a lot of dust is mistaken for spirits. But this thing was an orb, and it almost looks like it drips from the ceiling. I can't even explain, but it is like an orb-looking thing. It's like a glowing orb of light that just kind of falls from the staircase in a way.
Uh-huh.
I'll have to send you the video. I have it too. I'll send it to you. I'll DM it to you. It's weird because, like I said, I don't particularly believe in when it comes to orbs all the time.
Too. I question it a lot. Yeah.
But this video, I can't deny the way it moves and the way where it goes. It's just so weird.
Who discovered it? How did that get discovered?
It set off our sensor.
Oh, it set off your sensor.
Dust
doesn't set off your sensor.
Exactly. It set off the sensor. And it alerted the phone of the person who gets the information, and so that's how they knew it. And they showed us the next day. Yeah. So yeah. And sometimes you even feel like when I first started working there, you feel like something's watching, but it feels like if you prove yourself, if you prove that you have respect for the place,
yeah,
it's cool. There's nothing, it's not bad. I think it's more like a spirit of protection around this like historic spot.
okay, interesting.
Yeah. Because there's a lot of different reasons for things to stay around. It's not always so tragic. It's not always for tragic reasons.
Yeah, that's true. And I think that the things that I've experienced have been like that. So the town that I live in is called Georgetown, Colorado. It's a National Historic Landmark District, and we have over 240 buildings from the 1800s that are protected.
Yeah.
So I always say in the beginning of my tour that, spirits, paranormal activity is attracted to what is physical and what is familiar. Mm-hmm. And I think that's why people are constantly telling me new stories. I have more stories than I can tell during a tour.
Right. It's amazing. And another thing I really love about paranormal history is the way you get to share it, because it normally is like a verbal history.
Yeah.
It's definitely, you have books and movies and all this stuff, but even the movies are dramatized, and sometimes even but when someone's telling you about just an experience they had, there's something different about it.
Yeah. That's cool. Well, tell us about your podcast.
Yeah.
First, how did you get interested in this history in this realm?
Like I said, from a very young age, I particularly started experiencing paranormal occurrences. So I've always really studied and kept up with it. I watched a lot of like ghost hunters, ghost adventurers. I like that stuff. My favorite part of those shows is when they would tell the story. The ghost hunting is fun, but it's there to make a show. I liked the stories. And then my partner and co-host Dakota, he grew up in a place that had some paranormal activity, but he really was into just cryptids, aliens, and ghosts.
What are cryptids?
So cryptids are monsters, like something like a Bigfoot, a Loch Ness Monster, a Chupacabra. Okay. It goes on. You're going to get into your like older legends. We do like vampires. We'll cover vampires, stuff like that. Your monsters. But if you're studying it, it's called cryptozoology.
Okay, I didn't know that. I did not know.
I didn't either, actually, until I really started doing encounters with Dakota. But Dakota was into all of that stuff from an early age. And we both really do like history, and we're both theater majors. We met at college, at a community college doing theater. I do the more technical side, but Dakota is a musical and theater theater.
Oh, I noticed
major.
that you have music throughout the whole narrative of the podcast. I thought that was interesting.
Yeah.
So he does that.
Yeah, he's a musical. Well, he does more like theater and like musical theater. He does stage. He's really into Shakespeare too.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, and so a couple of years ago, he really wanted to start a podcast, and I've always just loved the paranormal and wanted to get into. I just like talking about the paranormal to anyone who will listen to me at that point. Yeah. And so we decided to start doing encounters. We cover not only ghosts, but aliens and cryptids, and even like demonology. We even go with, we do conspiracies. So we like to cover like a lot of different aspects.
I was going to ask you specifically about the Amityville, I guess. Mm-hmm. Where do we see this in popular culture? Which we kind of talked about, but
yes, I didn't even realize how much Amityville really impacted popular culture. I mentioned with the book, I feel like, and I could be wrong, but I feel like this was one of the first, experience to book to movies. But with the movie franchise, they have now made 15 Amityville sequels. They are still, to this day, I think they just released one in 2020. They are still making Amityville movies.
Are they all supposed to be true stories?
No.
Okay.
So the first one, the original one in 1979 is the Lutz's story. Okay. And then like I said, no one else really experienced anything else in the house to the point where they changed the windows and they've changed the address of the house because tourists were popping up and people were just trying to live their lives there. No one else really talks about anything creepy happening. Okay. But when it comes to the movies, I have a friend who worked on the movie and said weird things happened during the filming of the movie.
Oh, wow.
Just like weird energy, weird feelings. And then in 2005, they redid it. They made that's the other one that is about the Lutzes, where it's Ryan Reynolds. And in that movie, I know that Ryan Reynolds and the lead actress, I can't remember, also talk about having weird experiences.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, they talk about at like 3:15 every night being waken up. And that's, once again, George talked about that too.
So they basically remade the movie. I didn't know that.
Yeah, in 2005.
I saw the original one.
Yeah. The first one I saw was the one in 2005. I was so excited.
I'll have to watch that one then.
Those are the only two that really are about the Lutzes. The rest of them are just because Amityville has made such a name. And I think that's also when you really start to kind of get introduced to the Warrens. I don't know. We've covered a lot of their cases, and I can't remember if they had a case, like a bigger case before Amityville, but they were also involved in Amityville. And they would go on to be involved in so many cases where people to this day still mention their names. Like when Halloween comes around, you hear about the Warrens. You got 4 or 5 Conjuring movies. Like they've really also taken over. That's where I feel like Amityville really affected pop culture, because you have movies like The Haunting in Connecticut. You have all those Conjuring movies. These are all based on real stories, just like Amityville, based on a real story. Those are the Warren stories.
So Amityville then goes on to make 15 movies?
15 Amityville movies.
About the Amityville haunting.
Horror,
that
yes.
Now we've become completely fictionalized.
Exactly. Even The Exorcist was based on a real story.
Was it?
Yes, it was, but it happened to a little boy. We covered it in, I think, our second season. There's a lot of them. There's another movie called The Haunting of Emily Rose, which is based on the Annalise Miguel possession. So there's a lot of them that are kind of even secretly just tucked in there too. And I think the door was pushed open ultimately by Amityville, in my personal opinion.
Right. There was a movie I saw years ago. I think it's called The Entity. Did you ever see that?
I didn't know.
And that's supposed to be a true story. I'll tell you what, that movie scared the crap out of me.
Really? Yeah.
Yeah, you'll have to watch it. I'll make sure. I'm looking it up right now, but I'll make sure. Entity movie is a 1982 American supernatural horror film, and it's based on a true story. That movie scared the crap out of me.
I love those kind of things because I like to go back and look up the true story, because movies have to have a plot line, you know? They got to get you from A to B in 90 minutes generally. But sometimes you go and look into these things, and I guess my best example, though it doesn't have a movie or anything, there's a place called Bobby Mackey's. And I tried to talk Dakota into covering Bobby Mackey's, but it does not seem interesting until you jump into it. And it's really the craziest thing, to the point where they have a sign. It's a bar. To the point they have a sign that's like, if something happens to you, if a ghost does something to you, you cannot sue us. You know you're taking a risk, because someone tried to sue them because of the paranormal activity that was happening there.
That sounds familiar. Like I saw some kind of paranormal investigation show where they were there or something.
A lot of the paranormal shows go to Bobby Mackey's because there's so much.
You know what I hate about the paranormal shows?
Yes,
is when they start yelling at the spirit.
Yes,
like,
exactly.
Why would you do that? Like, there's no reason to do that. And I think of it, I don't know if it's true or not, but if, you know, these are spirits that are lingering for whatever reason, I just think you got to treat them with respect, like you were saying.
Yes, and I feel like I get a little preachy about it, but yes, I agree 1,000%. That's why, I mean, they're entertaining. I like Ghost Hunters. I don't think they really, I haven't watched them lately, but they didn't used to do that. But Ghost Adventurers and all the ones that kind of came after, they're getting too in whatever's faces, trying to make things happening. They're trying to scare people. So to do that, they have to get things to happen.
I don't like that. I don't watch those shows like that. I don't like that.
Not anymore. I used to, but not anymore.
I don't think it's necessary.
It makes your space feel a little negative too, because you start feeling like,
exactly.
Why are you doing that? Yeah. So I agree 1,000%. Especially once you hear these stories of the things that happen to some of these spirits. A lot of them are tragic. And why would you go and then start acting like that in somewhere something
Right.
I remember
and a lot of them aren't too. A lot of them aren't.
Exactly.
And so, like, that's not going to be an effective tool to, somebody who's just like, la, 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 this is where I used to live, whatever. Yeah, like, why would somebody come forth and talk to you if you're being an asshole? Excuse my French.
No, exactly. I agree.
We were talking about your podcast, and what is the name of your podcast?
It's called Encounters, a Paranormal Experience.
What's it about? Like, what happens on your show? So
we generally start with talking about whatever topic we pick, and we try to switch it up every week. So we'll either do like a ghost one or cryptids versus we really like, which we'll both pick a different monster that's kind of in the same realm, and then kind of tell you both the story and see who we think would win in a fight. I win all the time. I always win. He'll say he wins. He never wins. It's always me. No, I'm kidding. And then we cover alien abduction or contact or abductions, any kind of alien contactee. We have my friend, her name is Natalie. She'll come on and she'll do conspiracies with us. And we'll do some demonology stuff as well. So we try to we kind of get into every realm of paranormal that we can. And we would love, and we also do some discussions. We'll bring on other guests. We had a guest on who experiences sleep paralysis, and I also experience sleep paralysis.
Oh, that's horrible. I've had it a couple times. It's really horrible.
And we try to present the history from a skeptical and non-skeptical side as much as possible. And then we try to give you our opinions at the end, what we think about it, what we take away. We also like to just talk about how it affects pop culture, kind of like you do. We like just to kind of jump into it and get into what's going on and tell the story. And we have a YouTube that we're starting up right now.
I heard that, and you're doing reactions.
Yeah, we're going to do reactions. And
I think that's going to really fly for you. I think that's going to be...
Thank you.
I love watching reaction videos.
Yeah, and it's been really fun. We are even trying to we've done a couple of watching scary TikToks and other scary things and trying to get scared together and seeing if we can find some evidence together. We've done one where we go back to our hometown and talk about our hometown haunts, but we go to different haunted locations and kind of tell you the history.
So where are you both from the same place?
We both grew up in the same place, but now we're both right now we're in different locations. I'm in Santa Fe and he's in Oklahoma. Our next, I don't know if I should say this or not, but our next vlog, I guess, we want to go to Roswell because it's not too far. It's kind of in between both of us.
Okay.
And we're going to go check out Roswell because they have a UFO museum there and some cool stuff out there.
So you said Santa Fe? Is that where you're at?
Mm-hmm. Santa Fe, New Mexico. Yeah.
Is there anything that I didn't ask you that you want to share with my audience?
No, I don't really think so. I'm just so grateful to be on here today. I'm really thankful that you have me on and that you've listened to it, Encounters, and wanted to talk. It's really fun. I like I said earlier, I like talking about the paranormal. I like talking about history in general.
Well, I really enjoyed talking to you today, Amanda.
Yeah.
Thanks for being here.
Thank you. Thank you.
There you have it. Amanda Woods, co-host of Encounters, a Paranormal Experience podcast, talking about the Amityville horror. To find out more about Amanda and her podcast, be sure to check out our episode notes. Thanks for joining us. Have a great week.